you look around the league, there's a lot of teams, in the hunt. We're in the hunt. You sit here and you say, hey, Thanksgiving and close to the end of November, and we're in the hunt. When you sit around that table tomorrow, you're saying we're in the hunt. And there's a lot of teams that wish they were in the hunt. But we're in the hunt.
I can no longer take it. I am done. I'm done talking about this team. I'm done reading about this team. I just want it to happen. This is the season preview, and it's the happiest we'll be. It's like the most excited you'll be without angst, because like tomorrow I'm a basket case. So this is it. It's the In the Hunt cast. It's the season preview. I'm Greg. He's Kyle. He's Sean. We have someone to rely on for actual information, and Ryan Talbot being here to make us sound smart. So I don't know what else you want out of a season preview. But this is it. This is the In the Hunt cast. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Doing well.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah. Ryan, just talk and we'll just fill in. So I'm kidding. Let's start with you though. So obviously we all think that like things are going to go well this year. I don't want to put words in your mouth though. What are your thoughts now? 1 week, all the cuts have been made, all the practice squad has been signed. We got our punter and stuff like that. Just how are you feeling a week out?
I think this team had a lot of hype around it since the way last season ended, but from what I saw this summer at training camp through the preseason, I think those expectations are legitimate. So it seems like we're in this window now that it's Super Bowl or bust, and for the Bills, it really is. I think if you don't get to the big game, so to speak, even if you end up losing it, I think you have to get there this year. This is the year you have to get to the Super Bowl. I know the AFC is really stacked this year. A lot of teams making moves in the offseason, whether it's adding premier receivers, quarterbacks. We've seen it across the board, I guess, in that conference specifically, not so much in the NFC, but based on this Bills roster, the continuity on this team, the addition of Von Miller, you have to be thinking Super Bowl this year.
Do any of you think are able to make a prediction that the Bills will win the Super Bowl? Like,
That's
do you
stupid.
Yeah, no.
That's what I
Why
thought
would you
you
even say that during our season preview? No.
So
I'm not falling into this trap. It hurts so much.
Don't make it hurt. It's crazy this year. Like, Ryan ran down everything. Like, we can get into a little more detail about the other teams. Like, Russell Wilson's in the AFC. Like, that's kind of crazy. And that's, what is that, like the 9th most interesting thing that happened this offseason? And yet the Bills are still like, yeah, they're going to win. Every website's like, well, we can't tell you who's going to win, but they've got like a 76% chance of winning. That's nuts to me that this offseason can happen and the Bills are still like on top. That says a lot.
Yeah, it was a loaded, like I said, this offseason was crazy. Russell Wilson, you mentioned it, and to a much lesser extent, Matt Ryan joining the Colts. I think that he makes the Colts, though, that much better than Carson Wentz was. Devontae Adams joining the Raiders, Tyreek Hill joining the Dolphins. If you were a premier player, it feels like you almost landed in the AFC this offseason. And the same goes for the pass rushers, too. A lot of really good pass rushers, most of which landed in the AFC.
Well, I'm gonna plant a flag because I know Greg and Kyle are too scared to make proclamations here. I'm gonna say the Bills are gonna get to the Super Bowl. I'm not gonna say what's gonna happen because I don't want Greg to yell at me again. I think they're gonna get to the Super Bowl. I think they're gonna go 13-4. That's my prediction. I'm saying right now. The defense is so I recently went back like a masochist and I watched the Chiefs highlight package there, and it does amaze me that, like, take that team. It's essentially the same team, but you're adding a Von Miller, eventually Trey White, a draft class. And, like, the Chiefs don't have Tyreek Hill. And, like, it just, the defense is way better. The offense is a little better. We lost every one possession game last year. We did play a lot of shitty quarterbacks, but even still, we demolished them when we played them. So I think that I think they're good at football. I think they're going to do good football things.
There you go. And you have to look at the roster too and say, okay, is Gabe Davis going to ascend the level that a lot of the analysts are saying? I think yes, based on everything I saw this summer. I don't remember him dropping a ball once at training camp, and he was getting open early and often. Yes, it wasn't Trey White out there against him. It was some younger cornerbacks for the most part, but he looked the part. You expect Dawson Knox to ascend to that next level. Maybe not get the same amount of touchdowns as he did 1 year ago, but you'll see the receptions, receiving yards probably go up because those receptions that went to Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders last year, they're going to get spread out some way, shape, or form. So this offense with Josh Allen, with Stephon Diggs still, and then probably the best running back trio they've had in this regime, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen so far. There's a lot of reason to be excited about this offense picking up where they left off. Offensive line, the depth is a little concerning, but I think you can say that for all 32 teams in the NFL. That's why these bottom of the barrel offensive linemen, when they get released across the league, they're the position that I feel gets claimed the most. There's always teams looking for players that maybe fit their system that they want to try to develop. We've seen the Bills lose a few players in the last few years. Jack Anderson last year, Luke Tenuta this year, Tanner Owen, an undrafted free agent. So, teams are always scrambling to add to their depth, but that would be my key concern for this team if there is one weakness.
And I can't tell you how crushed Greg was by the Luke Tenuta cut. I got so many texts of like, you're going to give up on this kid already? He was the 6th round pick. I love me some Tenuta.
No, I had him getting cut in the Hunt training camp fantasy football league. So like that's a thing we do. We do training camp fantasy football here. It's really dumb. But so I did predict that it would happen. Yeah. Kyle, you go ahead and because
I'm on this podcast a little bit.
Yeah, Kyle, give a record prediction. What do you got? 7 and 10?
No, I had that's so I'm glad you brought up the record, Sean. So Vegas odds have the Bills at about 11.5 over under wins. Last year at this time, it was about the same, if I remember, maybe 10.5. But either way, I remember a lot of fans being like, I can't even envision the Bills losing that many games. 6 or whatever. Yeah, it was like 6. They went 11. I can't even imagine the Bills losing 6 going down the schedule. And so this year, it's almost the same thing. Is 11 wins about where you think they'll end up, or are you more on the I think that's way low and they're just doing that because the AFC's packed?
I'm somewhere in between. I'm around that 13 win total as well. I did a projection months ago, and I was at 13 or 14 wins for this team. I think 13 is realistic because you're going to always have that lull, that one game that you can't believe happened. Last year was Jacksonville. There's always that one game that's a head scratcher, but I'm also a little, I don't want to say worried, but without Trey White, those first at least 4 weeks of the season, those are going to be tougher games. The Rams on opening night, we already know about Cooper Kupp. I think Taron Johnson will be assigned to him a lot, but he's not the only receiver that team has. If Van Jefferson's good to go, he's someone that can watch. They added a talented receiver in free agency in Allen Robinson. So I think that game's going to be high scoring. You go to week 2, I like their odds against the Titans, but the Titans have been a thorn in their side the last few years. I still think, though, they're a much more talented team this season based on some of the losses that the Titans had in some in free agency, some via trading A.J. Brown, and then they just lose one of their best pass rushers to a torn ACL. Miami, the Bills have always had their number, but they're greatly improved, at least in terms of their roster going into this year. And then you also have the Ravens. So it's a tough stretch out of the gate, and that's just the first 4 weeks. Obviously, you have Pittsburgh, the Chiefs, and the Packers after that. So if they can survive that early season schedule, be hovering at 500, slightly over 500, I could see them going on a real tear after that because there's a lot of really favorable games following that game against the Packers.
If I look at their schedule, it's not as easy to get to 13 wins. Like you're playing the Super Bowl champion and like in their stadium to begin the season. Whoever knows what's going to happen in the season opener. Are the Titans going to be that much worse? Are you really going to just keep beating the Patriots and the Jets and the Dolphins you're just never going to sweep the AFC East every single year. And I think everyone put them at 13 wins has 6 wins there. Like, you're going to beat Bill Belichick like twice every single year. That's just going to happen. Now, I know they lost the win game last year, but
well, they did probably say that about the Bills in like 2007, and then did.
Yeah,
for a long time.
Well, I'm just like looking at seasons go, and the Bills have been really good for a really long time. It doesn't mean they won't make the playoffs. They're pretty much like in good shape to do that. But like the Chiefs, the Packers, there's just a lot of games there that I just like.
What I did literally today, I was looking at the schedule, just kind of prepping for the episode, looking over it, and
That's a first.
Yes, very much so. And
he didn't know we had a guest until 5 minutes before the end. I'm not kidding. He's like, we have a guest.
Sean's like, I'm gonna send the email to Ryan, and I was like, who's Ryan? We have a producer now?
Are we calling Greg Ryan now?
I looked at the schedule and I went, that's a lot of tough games. But then I remembered people are looking at other fans are looking at their schedule and seeing the Bills and going, well, that's a fucking loss. Mm-hmm. Like, this is, you know what I mean? Like, I forgot about that. It's like, oh, the Bills are tough too. And people look at that and go, well, that sucks. We have to play the Bills.
I want Kyle and Greg to give us a number. That's what I want. I want something we could look back and laugh or praise you for at the end of the season.
9-8.
All right.
I'm going to bet right with Vegas. I'm going to go 10-6, actually. I'm going to bet the under on 11.5.
10-6-1. There's 17 games.
10-7. Mm-hmm. I think there's going to be some wild winter games again, and then they're going to switch up their whole new stadium and make it a dome. I think this is going to be the season. Two seasons in a row, Terry Pagula's going to go, fuck the weather. I'm done. We're not blue collar anymore. We're known for tech and medical. I'm done with this city. And he's gonna go, I'll give you the $300 million, build a dome on this shit.
Okay, now that's a prediction I can get behind. Now, Ryan, do you have any I don't know, individual performance predictions of someone who's gonna be like, oh, I think, secretly this guy's going to have a monster season. Maybe people, fans aren't thinking about, or they're thinking about, but you think are going to get even better than what fans are thinking.
He thinks Josh Allen's going to have a good year.
Oh, there you go.
He's the person to watch. He's pretty good.
That's why we bring Ryan on the hot takes.
Yeah, I'll go with Ed Oliver. I think Ed Oliver was really good last year. I think he might end up being the best defensive lineman on this team. That's including Von Miller. So that's really saying something. Last year, Ed Oliver was among I think he was in the top 10 for defensive tackles that had to face double teams. And that's not his MO. He's not a big, bulking defensive tackle. He's an explosive guy off the line that can get after the quarterback. He can make plays in the run game. And you look at this offseason. First, Von Miller. Teams have to game plan for him. He's going to be their number one person that they're going to be game planning for on that defensive line. Then you look at the defensive tackle additions this team made. That was their weakness last year. Star Lotulelei was never the version of himself that they had on the Panthers. So the Bills go out and they add Daquan Jones. Jones is great at stuffing the run, being that guy that can take on 2 offensive linemen, freeing things up for Ed Oliver. You have Tim Settle come in from the Commanders, someone that I always thought was playing on the same level as a lot of those other defensive linemen on the team, despite everyone else on that unit in Washington being a first-round pick. Settle was not of that mold. He was not a day one pick, but he played up to those levels when I watched him in Washington. You bring back Jordan Phillips. You all of a sudden have some really good defensive tackles, I should say, next to Ed Oliver that can also be rotated with Ed Oliver, keep him fresh. You can line Oliver up on the outside. They did it a few times last season as a D end. And then on the opposite end of the D line, I really like what I saw from Greg Rousseau as well. I'm expecting him to take his game to another level, not maybe to some of the predictions I've seen elsewhere where, oh, this is a guy that's going to have a breakout year. I'm not there yet on Rousseau. I just think he's going to have better matchups with having Von Miller opposite him. But Ed Oliver, I think he's someone that's going to really break out this year, become a household name nationally.
I like that you went defense. That's cool.
Ryan, will the Bills have 1,000-yard rusher
Ooh.
in anybody? No.
No.
Singletary got close, and he almost didn't touch the ball in the beginning of the year.
And that's fair. And he ended the year on a really high note. I thought that he was their best back at training camp. But Zach Moss is going to have a role on this team. He was playing with an ankle injury, or coming off of an ankle injury, and it really hampered the way he could play last year. And you saw that he couldn't pick up any tough yards. He couldn't cut. He didn't have any explosiveness. I saw a lot of that this summer where, a few times I had to check and make sure it said number 20 on that jersey, because I'm like, was that really Zach Moss, the way he was moving in the backfield? I think that first and foremost, they're going to use him as kind of a goal line vulture with those running backs, which, don't draft any of these guys in fantasy football first and foremost. But he's also going to get some opportunities to carry the ball between the 20s too, and I think he's going to have a decent year. And then James Cook and Khalil Shakir were both rookies where I said, okay, maybe late in the season, you're going to see their roles expand. I could see both of them having big roles out of the gate. That's how impressive they both were. But Cook specifically, we all know that he was the best pass catching back in this year's draft class. You can utilize him that way, but he has the extra gear, I guess. That's always the thing you heard about Singletary and Moss. Well, they can rip off some decent runs, but neither of them have that extra gear. Cook has that gear, that breakaway speed, where if he gets past that first line of defense, he's off to the races. So you got to utilize him too out of the backfield. And with three guys getting their opportunities, I just have trouble seeing one of them get to 1,000 yards rushing. 1,000 total yards, yeah, absolutely. That's a possibility for one of them with the receiving totals, but I don't see it necessarily on the ground for one of them.
I'm gonna go with a long shot player here, which is Shakir, the new wide receiver. I don't think he's low on the depth chart, but I don't think he's gonna blow anything up. But I think it's a long season. There's gonna be some injuries, and I think he's the type of person that you see and you go oh, this kid's pretty good. He's almost like when Gabe Davis first kind of started popping off, and I didn't have the balls, but I saw on DraftKings for offensive rookie of the year, he was plus 12,000. And I was like, I don't know, if there's an injury, he could rack up some, heaven forbid one of our three people get hurt. I think you could plug him in, and he just seems like he's had such a good preseason, and it just feels like he could jump in and just seem like a veteran right out the gate.
It would have to be a designated survivor situation where everyone's gone. That's big.
I like my dumb long bets, Greg.
Good.
That would be quite a prediction to come true, especially at those odds. But he's someone where the draft analysts had him as all of them mentioned, really good slot receiver in the NFL, has the potential to be. But he was also I thought he was good on the outside at training camp in the preseason. He could get open in all those spots. Maybe slot is his most natural position. And in 2023, 2024, he becomes their main slot receiver. But you're right. You need some more outside options. And I think he will be their top option if they lose a receiver to injuries, if they want to really spread out defense. He'll get in there with Isaiah McKenzie, with Gabe Davis, with Stephon Diggs. I think he'll pass Crowder pretty early in the year on the depth chart. But then from there, like you guys said, it'll take an injury before he gets significant reps, but really do like his game.
I always feel like after every game, the Bills have 10 people with the reception. It just doesn't seem like a rookie like that. If you're not Stephon Diggs, you're not getting 80 receptions in this offense, 80 or more. Even Gabe Davis, I would be hesitant to bet him higher than 55 receptions. I think that would be a stretch for him.
I'm as a fantasy analyst.
Oh boy.
Let me get out of the way.
Yes, please. I'm with you on the Gabe Davis thing. And this is more fantasy related. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad NFL wide receiver, but he is so people are just assuming he's just going to be phenomenal right away. And he might be. I pray that he is, but I think people are just oh yeah, it's gonna, Stephon Diggs is gonna have 1,200 yards, Gabe Davis is gonna have 1,200 yards. And I think it's gonna be more like what it was last year with Emmanuel Sanders. I think 850, 900 is more realistic.
68.
Yards.
No, he caught 4 touchdowns in that Chiefs game. So you got to figure he'll get 4 touchdowns a game, 17 times 4, 60.
Yeah.
So like that's the ceiling for him,
Yeah.
Davis,
Oh,
for
there you go.
68 total touchdowns.
I know I do like Gabe Davis, and I mentioned earlier some of those targets that went to Sanders, that went to Cole Beasley. They have to go somewhere. Teams are still going to try to take Stephon Diggs away, so that benefits him too. But I think 900, 950, that's not a bad projection for what Gabe Davis can do for this offense, especially like to Greg's point, they're usually targeting the running backs a few times out of the backfield. Even Reggie Gilliam will get a few targets at fullback. Tight end Knox will be there. I don't know about anyone after Knox. I did like Morris this summer, but I'm not sure I would count on any of the other tight ends to really play a pivotal role on this team this year. But it's always tough to project after with this offense with so many mouths to feed because there's so many weapons that are going to be utilized in game plan specific type of areas like Isaiah McKenzie last year against the Patriots. There's going to be games where, okay, Diggs is going to be taken out where the Patriots always take out this weapon or whatever team it may be. And that might be a Gabe Davis game. There might be games where they're more balanced and they run the ball more. So it is really hard to project beyond that point because there's so much talent on this Buffalo squad.
This question's for everybody, and I might be forgetting a year here, but is this the best 1-2 wide receiver since like Molds and Prime Peerless Price?
Well, they had Reed and Molds at the same time, but by then Reed was older and Molds wasn't anything for the first 2 years. It's a good question. Price and
Molds both went over 1,000 yards in one year.
Let me think about it.
I don't know. I'm trying to think, I don't know.
I mean, Reed and Lofton, without a doubt, like, 2 Hall of Famers.
Well, yeah. So. I mean, I'm not going back that far. I'm just maybe in the 2000s. This is the best 1-2.
Yeah, I can't. No one was Stevie Johnson, right? Was anyone that good with him?
Donald Jones.
David Nelson and Donald Jones were the. Yeah. So yes, Kyle, it's a very good question.
Look at that. Wow. I got another question for Ryan. He's our guest.
Yeah, okay. Go for it.
Now this is exciting because now I'd usually be asking Greg and Sean this, and so now I get to ask Von Miller. There's another almost prop question here. Over 10 sacks. And do you think he's going to be one of the first Sean McDermott lineman to get over 10 sacks? And is he going to play over 55% of the snaps like all the defensive linemen usually play?
I'll say over on the sack total, and maybe that's unfair because of some of the guys he was going against this summer, but he was just abusing offensive linemen. But that included Deion Dawkins at times, where that first move, he was just blowing by a guy like Deion Dawkins. And the first day that really Spencer Brown was getting ramped up a little bit, he went against Von Miller, and you almost saw Spencer Brown's jaw drop on one of these reps where it was over before it began, and pretty much right off the snap. So despite his age, he's still really explosive, but he's also the pass rush arsenal is really impressive and things that he can do at his age. It's not just using his speed off the edge. It's the way that he moves, the way that the way that he bends. I know that Sean McDermott always talks about that. Yeah, he's able to bend. I know that sounds silly, but he's able to get around you just using his body and pushing the hands up. I think that over 10 is very realistic for him. I know that the Bills love the rotation on the defensive line, and I think that he's going to push early on the season to play over that percentage. But the key thing for him, and I hope he realizes, and I'm sure he will, is you got to stay fresh for the postseason. You got to stay fresh when it really matters. That's when the Bills really could have used a player of his caliber last year. They couldn't touch Mahomes in that playoff game. I can't remember them coming close, really. I think maybe they had one quarterback hit in that entire game. So if he can stay fresh for the playoffs, that's when they need him the most. But I think that 10 is very real, or over 10, I should say, is very realistic based on what I saw this summer, the way that he put some of these offensive linemen on skates.
Now, we could obviously, I'm sure we will come back to the Bills, but I want to see if there's any hot takes anyone has on other teams around the NFL.
The Sabres? Oh, around the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The two teams I don't get the hype on are the Eagles and the 49ers. Eagles have a good roster, but it all comes down to quarterback, and I just think Hurts is fine. And then the 49ers hype confuses me even more because Trey Lance is just so unknown, and normally people are so cool on their projections with rookie quarterbacks. And Trey Lance didn't even look that good in the preseason, and I don't get. I suppose it's all coaching hype, but I just don't get the yes, Greg.
Trey Lance reminds me of the Homer Simpson car. Like there's all this money and hype that goes into it. And like, what if it comes out and it's just this monstrosity that doesn't work? The guy's thrown like 50 passes in his lifetime.
Yeah.
And they invested like one of the best rosters in the NFL. It's like, here you go, Trey. Now he might be great. He certainly like has those tools, but it's just funny to me that there's nothing there. And we're all just wondering.
There's so much hype on him that it's like, I feel like first round picks come in and people are like, well, let's see what he does. But now obviously Trey Lance has had the year to sit, but it just feels like everyone's like, oh yeah, they're going to be good. I'm like, it wouldn't surprise me if they won 6 games this year.
They treated a guy who got them to the NFC Championship game of the Super Bowl just like dog crap. It's just like, oh, go away. And then they, it's just it's incredible what they put into him. So
he can't be worse than Garoppolo.
No, Garoppolo's terrible. I agree, but like like watching him play football, it's just it's weird to me that he can get a team that far. So
yeah, and Garoppolo is more of a pure game manager. But the fact that they kept him around is, I thought, pretty damning for Trey Lance. After all this talk about Lance is our guy, we're going to try to trade him. The fact that he accepts to a pay cut, first of all, but he's willing to stay there, I think that says to the coaching staff, we're not 100% confident Lance plays the entire season or starts the entire season. Greg mentioned he has all the attributes of a great quarterback, but my problem with that is a lot of it coming out was, oh yeah, a lot of the same skills as Josh Allen. Josh Allen was an anomaly. Most people thought that the accuracy, the issues that he had couldn't be fixed. And, to his credit, he was able to do it. What's that?
It's not me.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, don't listen to old episodes for the love of God.
But Lance, you even hear the reports. There were multiple national analysts that said something about arm fatigue, and even though the Niners kind of joked at that, and some other people did too, I don't know where multiple analysts would get this from out of thin air. It had to come from somewhere, so there might be arm concerns there. I guess my hot take, and it would be, I don't want to say first to worst, but I think that Titans go from the 1 seed in the AFC to missing the playoffs altogether. I don't know if that's maybe a hot take or not, but I don't like that roster. I feel like there's a lot of issues with it. I think the Colts are going to be the team in that division this year. I think the Texans will surprise some teams. I'm not saying they're going to be anywhere near a playoff team, but there's some talent on that roster to at least compete in that division. So I could see the Titans, after being the 1 seed in the AFC, missing the playoffs altogether this year.
Well, so you said the Texans were going to be better than people think, or did you say the
Yes.
Titans? Oh, Texans. Okay, that's
Texans
interesting.
better than the people think, because I think there's very low expectations there. But I thought Davis Mills late in the season was among the best of the rookie quarterbacks, which that's not saying much because we've already talked about Trey Lance. Zach Wilson did not have a good rookie year. So it wasn't a high bar that was being set by these other players, but he was efficient. They've added some playmakers on both sides of the ball. They're a little bit old, obviously a lot of the Bills runoffs there with Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, but they're a more talented roster than they were 1 year ago.
I love reading tweets about Brandon Cooks and like how he you just, no one knows anything about him. He's just there, but he has like more receiving yards and catches and all that than like most other receivers in the NFL. He's like, that's a super interesting team to mention up, but like, I love hearing Brandon Cooks stats.
He's so weird. It's so weird because teams will get rid of him after a year or two, and he's always producing.
Yeah.
It's not a production issue, and he just kind of moves on. He'll have a quiet 1,000-yard season, call it a day, and pack it up and go to another bad team after that.
To stay in the AFC South here, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are the most interesting team in the NFL. Legitimately, I mean, look, Trevor Lawrence had a horrible rookie season. But like the joke of a coach they had, and now they have, at least, I mean, he's a Super Bowl winning coach in Doug Peterson, But, I think Doug Peterson was like kind of laughed after the Super Bowl. They really got shitty. But now, after seeing Carson Wentz on other teams with other coaches just be atrocious, I'm almost like, well, was it Carson Wentz or was it Doug Peterson who got who fired? And I think I'm leaning now more towards Wentz got Peterson fired, but also like people forgetting like the Davis Mills thing. You were right. He was by far the best rookie quarterback looking last year. Maybe not by far because Mac Jones had a really great year, but like I'm not going to back off of Trevor Lawrence, who is one of the best college prospects of all time. and now they actually built around him, unlike some of the other teams like Chicago didn't do anything to help Fields. It's like they want him to fail. But like I think Jacksonville is going to be I think watching Trevor Lawrence is going to be fun with that team.
And that's fair. And Peterson at least is a major upgrade for Lawrence specifically in terms of helping him, take that go to the next level of his game. So probably in the same boat as a team like the Texans. I don't think playoffs are a realistic expectation. There's always a surprise team or two though, but you're going to see a much more competitive team this year. I'm excited to see what Travis Etienne can do on that team. Obviously missed the year with an injury. They still have James Robinson, someone that's always pretty productive for them. And you mentioned they added some weapons for him, or at least better receivers than what they had before. So it'll be an interesting group to watch as the year goes on.
I also think the Raiders are a bit underrated. I think everyone's talking about Denver because of Russell Wilson and everything, but like I just feel like looking at the rosters and even the quarterbacks, I don't think Russell Wilson hasn't really set the world on fire the past 2 years, and maybe you blame that a lot on Seattle, but like, I mean, I think Derek Carr is kind of a quietly underrated quarterback, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders had a better record at the end of the day than Denver.
And that's fair too. And in addition to adding Devontae Adams, they had a really good pass rusher to that team that already has a good pass rusher. So you look at the AFC West though, and it's just like, are those teams just going to beat each other up all year? I think it's fair to think that that's a realistic possibility. Mahomes lost Hill, but there's still the Chiefs. There's still a lot of talent there. The Chargers are cursed when it comes to making the playoffs. They always find a way to kind of bumble out of it, but that's just an overall great roster. You mentioned the Broncos, Russell Wilson. I really like Jerry Jeudy and Sutton on that team. They have talent. So throughout the year, aren't these teams just going to beat each other up? Yeah, and maybe the Raiders come out on top of that somehow, some way, because Carr is better than a lot of people give him credit for. It's my only problem is his brother's always on NFL.com listing him as his MVP favorite, and that's my one thing that always kind of comes back to bite him. But I see the Raiders being in contention in that division too. They were a playoff team 1 year ago, and when you look at the additions that they made, you can't say that they got worse. Maybe depth wise, but overall talent, no, they got better for sure.
I heard a theory that his brother might have been the one that kind of torpedoed the beginning of his career, because everyone just had in their mind David Carr and how much of a bust he was. And then Derek Carr came along and it was kind of like, I just associate, like GMs were just associating him with his horseshit brother. So they never really got a chance. So whether or not he's good or not, I think he'll determine a lot of that this year. But I know in the beginning of his career, he wasn't as highly touted. I think because he had his brother stink all over him.
Yeah. Absolutely. If you go back and watch those early Texans teams, some of it was the offensive line was just absolutely atrocious, but Carr did himself no favor the way he held onto the ball with that team, the hits that he took. His career was over before it even began.
Fresno? Where did he go to?
Yeah.
Was it Fresno?
Oh, no, maybe it
was
was Houston.
I know Derek went to Fresno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's who I was. Yeah, that's what. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Vegas.
No one listens this far into the podcast. So
no, we're just hanging out now.
That's right. Yeah. But Sean wants it to be an hour and a half. But so
I don't. I don't.
Vegas
Kyle has
has
80 more questions.
Vegas has the Broncos, Chargers, and Chiefs all at 10.5 wins, and the Raiders at 8.5. It'd be crazy if. Wait, can a division have 4 winning teams? I think it can happen, right?
David Carr was Fresno State.
Yeah, I think that could happen.
I don't know how math adds up in that, but
they could all make the
that'd be
playoffs.
awesome.
Like, you know.
I hope they all do. That'd be fun.
That would be. Does anyone have any AFC East takes? I think Miami's going to surpass New England. And I think the interesting thing about Tua is I don't think he's going to be good or bad. I think he's going to be kind of that in-between quarterback that almost does Miami no favors, almost like the Baker Mayfield of a Cleveland time where you're like, he's pretty good some games, but do we try and get someone better? I obviously could be wrong. What the hell do I know? But he strikes me as someone who's not going to be a disaster or like a person who just kind of blows the roof off the place.
It's hard for me to be afraid of them just because how good the Bills have been against it. Like Josh Allen seems to own Miami, so it's hard for me to give them that much more respect, but they'll be better. I only have one wish in this world other than the Bills win the Super Bowl, and I just want the Patriots to be bad. I want Mac Jones to just be bad. It isn't even the Patriots anymore. I just hate hearing about when he had a halfway decent rookie year and they went through that cream puff stretch of their schedule and won a bunch of games and people were anointing him as better. And it became personal for me to want Mac Jones to be bad. I admit I'm being petty about this, but I want him to fail.
Hey, there you go. But you're right, though. Look at what he did at the end of the year. Even though the Patriots won that first game against the Bills, they didn't trust him to throw the ball more than 3 times. They knew his arm couldn't handle those wins. He has limitations. In the rematch in the regular season, the Bills were able to kind of, I don't want to say have their way with them because it was, I think it was 33-21 at the end of that game. But they had a lot more success. They were able to get a few interceptions and play him better. He choked in that playoff performance. The Patriots did him no favors this offseason with the coaching moves that they made, the fact that they don't really have a true offensive coordinator. Everything's going to still run through Belichick. I think Belichick personally has lost some of his shine, obviously, since Tom Brady left. I think his drafting has been awful the last few years. There's always a few hits that you can point out on any team, but you're finding a lot of those middle rounds where you're supposed to be adding that depth and those players that can emerge as talented players all getting cut. Both of those third round tight ends are now looking for new homes. Maybe they landed elsewhere already, but you get rid of 2 guys that were being hyped up as being major producers in this new look offense that they're going to have. And one had something like 4 catches in his tenure with them. I think 3 catches actually. And I don't even know how much the other one had, but they're drafting poorly. You saw no real impact player join them this offseason in free agency. You had Judon recruiting everyone under the sun, but no one ended up going there. I think that the Patriots are on their last legs with Bill Belichick. I wouldn't be shocked if this is his last season. He goes out on some kind of losing note. He's never going to be fired there because of all the good things he's done. But at some point, he's kind of got to say, okay, I need to walk away because these last few years are kind of putting a stain on my legacy a little bit. Unless you have that heir apparent quarterback that you think could be the next Tom Brady, there's no reason to stay. And Mac Jones, like I said earlier, he has limitations on his game in terms of what he can do. He's a game manager at best, but you need a lot of really good players around you on both sides of the ball to make that work. And I don't think the Patriots are there. So agree with the Dolphins surpassing them. I'm nowhere near the Jets surpassing them yet because it's still another year or 2, I think, for the Jets. And I feel like I'm saying that all the time with New York. But down the road, I think even the Jets have more opportunities to pass the Patriots because there's a lot of young talent there that if everything clicks for them, they could end up being maybe the 3rd best, maybe the 2nd best if Zach Wilson ascends in 2023, 2024. But right now, I think Miami's the 2nd best team by far in this division.
I actually saw a tweet speaking of the Patriots drafting record. I don't have
tweet of the preview.
Tweet of the preview.
Nice.
I don't have a name of who did this here, but it's the Patriots had 13 first, second, and third round picks between 2018 and 2020, and they're essentially 2 for 13. Kyle Duggar and Damian Harris, and they said everyone else is either off the team already or is like a low level depth player, and that's like, I mean, that's atrocious.
Not to mention, too, how they spent their free agent money last year.
Yeah.
They paid,
Terrible overpayment.
Jonnu Smith, and what do you have, 20 catches?
Yep, Jonnu Smith struggled. They spent a lot of money on Nelson Aguilar. He still has a high cap hit. That was a terrible acquisition. But those 2 hits, one of them is a running back, and no offense to the running back position, but those guys are a dime a dozen. You can find them undrafted players. You can find guys late in the draft, so that's not a great hit. And as much as I like Kyle Duggar, for his age, he was one of the oldest players in that draft class. So I'm hoping you're going to get production out of him from, out of the gate, because there wasn't a lot of window of time for him to necessarily ascend. He's going to be a really good player in this league for the next few years, but he was also one of the oldest prospects. I think he was 25 when he was a rookie, somewhere around that age. So
That's
He's
horrible.
26 right now.
Yeah.
actually, so maybe he was 24 then when he was drafted, which is definitely older for a rookie.
He's like the Greg Bauka podcasting.
Oh, so he still has years of productivity left. That's interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of being old, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Were you going to ask another question?
I had one more question, and then you guys,
No, then we're doing then we're doing the question game.
Okay.
We're done. So this is your question.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Oh,
I was going to ask if Bean finally addressed the OBJ rumors, and what do you think? Do you think it's likely? I mean, I guess they have the timetable on their side, because he's probably not going to be ready for another month or two. But like, it just seems like unless there's an injury or two, as good as he is, it just seems like too much. Or do you think they maybe get him near the end of the season? Just why not?
I think it would be more so because there's either an injury or someone was underwhelming on this team and they needed to add something to try to change things up. But you're right. He's not supposed to be ready until, probably early December at best. So the Bills can be patient on that decision. But if I'm Odell Beckham Jr., it's the same thing. I'm not making any decisions right now. Even if a team comes to me and makes a halfway decent offer money-wise, I'm waiting until December so I know who the true contenders are in the AFC and NFC. And then I can pick, because the Rams have said from the get-go they would like to have him back. And if they're as good as they were 1 year ago, maybe they'll be in play for him. But Buffalo, it should be the same thing in his eyes. All right, is this team a real contender? Can I really add something? Because a lot of fans are he's interesting. A lot of fans on social media, when we've been posting articles about him, no, we don't need him. We don't want him. We don't want the drama. Well, one, he's coming off of winning a Super Bowl with the Rams. So and everyone there just praised him. They want him back. They really liked him. Those last 2 games of him as a member of the Rams, he went over 100 yards against the 49ers in that comeback in the NFC Championship. And I don't want to overstate and say he was on his way to becoming Super Bowl MVP. They had something like 2 receptions for 50 yards, around 50 yards, and a touchdown in that first half. And he was the X factor for the Rams. Once he went out with that injury, they weren't moving the ball for some time. It took multiple drives for them to get back in sync and figure things out with Cooper Kupp and with that offense to get the lead back late and win the Super Bowl. So he was very good in those 2 games. So he's someone I wouldn't mind seeing the Bills add, but it comes down to money as well. They have limited cap space. They could restructure someone. You can always free up money. There's always money in the banana stand, like they always said on Arrested Development. There's a way to make it work, but it has to make sense for both sides.
Okay. All right. Well, as Greg said, let's move on to our trivia game. Normally, before our trivia game, we do a blurb from our number 1 Patreon, Thomas Mulcahy. Thomas did not send me anything. I asked twice. He didn't.
Fuck him, dude.
Do we know if he's okay?
He's out. Cut him from the Patreon, but take his money. But cut him.
I think. I hope you're still alive, Tom. Maybe we'll do 2 next week. But our question game, we always play for a fake jersey, and the jersey on the line. Get yourself a nice Nick McLeod jersey. Dearly departed. You could put it next to your Ray jersey. Get a nice McLeod.
Die?
Did he sign anywhere?
He signed with the Giants, so he's technically.
He did
I didn't say dearly departed is.
When you play for the Giants, you're dearly departed. So get yourself a nice McLeod jersey. One question this time. Kyle and Greg hate this game. Hate this game,
dude.
I know. I'm bringing it back. Probably the last time this year.
It better be. I'm mad at it.
Ryan's going to start, but you're going to go back and forth, and you're going to name any Bills player, past or present, whose last name begins with an N, an O, or a P. A lot of
What?
options. An N, an O, or a P. There's more than 20 gettable names. There's some current Bills you could snipe out. So their
So
last
their
name,
last name. Okay.
their last name has to begin with an N,
Oh, I got one.
an O, or
I
a
gotta write
P.
this down.
All right.
So,
I know, right?
So Ryan, you go first. Does anyone any name jump off the top of your brain there?
Yeah, Nate Odoms.
Nate Odom.
Double points, even though it's only last name and an O in there.
That's true. That's
There's no double points.
good one to start with. Nate Odoms. Nate Odoms. Greg, to you next.
Peerless Price. He was mentioned earlier, so
True.
he's there. And now I'm out of names. Hopefully Kyle blows this.
All right. Well, Jordan Poyer.
Jordan Poyer. That's good. That's good. And don't worry, I'll give hints if people get stuck. But Ryan, do you have another one ready to go?
Nick O'Leary.
Nick O'Leary. Look at that.
I knew there was an O.
How are you getting O's? That's the hardest letter to get.
How many Irish people?
That's right. A lot of Irish O's. Let's go back to our roots. Am I up?
You're up, Greg.
Also mentioned earlier, David Nelson. So
David Nelson. Good job. See, look at you guys are killing it.
this could take forever with 3 letters.
No,
Look at this.
there's not
No,
a ton of
I'm
them.
done after this.
Oh, okay, you got it. You got one.
I got one.
All right.
Jeff Posey.
Wow.
Yeah,
love
that
how
was
confident
that's
you're
the
going.
best
Way
name
back.
you're gonna hear today. Jeff
Was
Posey, baby.
Jeff Posey, the linebacker they signed at like 12:01 during free agency, was that his claim to fame?
I don't know. I mean, his claim to fame was he played next to Tequila Spikes and London Fletcher for the Bills.
Okay.
Jeff Posey. There's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
I also need one of the letters.
They're in order. N-O-P.
Oh yeah, okay.
I'm sticking with the O's. I'm stealing another O. One of my favorite drought quarterbacks, Kyle Orton.
Kyle Orton.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well done, Greg. Greg, you want me to stop here? Give a couple vague
No, I'll
hints?
stay with P's and go with Jason Peters, future
Jason.
Hall of Fame tight end turned tackle.
Nice.
He was fun.
Well
First game,
done.
He was this giant dude just running down the field. Go ahead, Kyle.
Killing it.
Yes, I will go ahead and pick.
I can give you a couple vague hints, Kyle, if you want.
Okay, give me a hint.
Okay, we got I believe there's 2 more people still on the Bills. We got some famous
Terrell Owens.
Wow.
Woo, boy.
Well
Right.
done. Well, you know what? Let me just finish that hint since we finished 3 rounds. Got a famous quarterback, got some wide receivers, some this might be too good of a hint, some defensive tackles.
Mhm.
A couple defensive tackles.
Yeah. Okay. I'll stick at Oliver.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I was looking behind Ryan. He's got a bunch of pictures behind him, and I see like Ralph Wilson. I was like, is there any Bills there that might have a letter? And it's a threat level midnight poster behind you. That looks excellent, by the way. Paul Posluszny.
Paul Posluszny.
God.
Well done. A couple people who were, I'll tell you this as a hint, who were like on the Bills like the last 2 years, not anymore, but like people who like were just on the Bills. A bunch of those people,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and one current Bills player, I think. 2 current Bills players left.
I got Poyer.
Yeah,
Oh,
2,
you said left.
Yeah.
Boy.
and both on defense.
Well, why don't you just keep saying stuff?
That's a lot of hints I gave you.
Yeah.
Also,
It is.
defensive tackle is a pretty big hint there too. Still a couple of those left, Kyle.
Ed Oliver Jr. I don't know, man. I might be tapping out because this game gives me anxiety, and I hate the feeling of my brain is like a hamster wheel right now, but like also the hamster is like drunk, so I can't really think of anything.
When is it? You don't want to take a stab at one of the most famous Bills quarterbacks of all time?
Is there a Matt O'Sullivan? Just guess it. Matt O'Sullivan.
Let me see if there's a Matt O'Sullivan. Nope, there is not. All right, you're out. We'll see.
All right.
Ryan, you got a name?
Yeah, I don't know why these drought players keep coming to me. Eric Pears.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, he was like 6'9" or something. Insane.
Yeah.
Who the heck is the famous Bills quarterback of all time?
I think he's being sarcastic with famous.
Oh, yeah, but I can't think of.
No, there's been two.
That's why I'm thinking it's
one
not
is current,
and one of them, like Bledsoe, kind of fits in there, but obviously he isn't the answer. This is tough. Okay, I'm gonna give myself 5 seconds. If I don't do it, then I'm out. Noonan.
Noonan?
Yeah.
Well, let me see it.
UB1 Noonan.
Noonan.
No, Noonan. Ryan takes it. Do you have any others, Ryan, just to smear it in these guys' faces?
Sean Nelson.
I already said him.
Oh, did you really? I'm sorry.
We invite
Sean
you
Nelson.
on our
The
podcast.
My bad.
No, you
Oh,
didn't say-
okay. No,
Sean
I think you're
Nelson.
saying, yeah, okay, Sean Nelson. No,
Oh,
that
Sean
wasn't said.
Nelson.
That wasn't said. Very good. You win.
Well done. Let me go.
Enjoy your jersey that doesn't exist.
Let me give you some names that are you may have missed. We have a Saran Neal, Josh Norman, Scott Norwood, Tyan Secchi, F.A. Obata. Who else here? Roscoe Parrish.
Were there any quarterbacks?
Yeah, I'm getting to it. I'm saving him for last. Roscoe Parrish is a big name. Bryce Pop. We have Harrison Phillips and Jordan Phillips. Mike Pike. And Greg, probably your favorite Bill of all time, Nathan Peterman.
What about Craig Null? Does that start with a G or something?
Craig
They-
Null?
No, that would have been.
Yeah, that would have Craig
That
Null,
would've been
quarterback from
good.
2006.
Oh, okay.
That was a quarterback? That was a real quarterback?
Yeah.
That was a real quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He came up hyped. He was drafted, I think, the year after Aaron Rodgers, and there are people that are saying that he was going to be better than Rodgers for Green Bay, and the Bills were able to eventually get him, and he was just awful.
I thought that was Brian Brown.
Same
Oh, that
thing,
is
yeah.
Brian Brown. That wasn't Ronaldo was with the Packers too, though, I think.
The Brom thing, you asked earlier if what you're saying was a hot take. The Brom thing is a hot take, like thinking he was going
Yeah.
to be better than Aaron Rodgers. Yeah.
Ronaldo, I think, was with Green Bay too at one point. Maybe
He
that's-
was just not.
Okay.
Yeah, he was
Yeah, not
here.
Brom,
So
though.
both of them were here, but neither of them were.
Very,
anything,
very
so.
quick. I want to go around the horn and do predictions for the Rams game. I think they win mainly because I'm going to the game and I'll be sad if they lose. So I think they win 28-17. Ryan, what do you got?
I originally had this as a loss because of the way that the Bills came out of the gate last year against Pittsburgh. They just did not look ready for week one. This is national audience, a huge game, but I'm actually going to have them win this game because of my concerns with Stafford's elbow. There's a lot of reports that his elbow is not at 100% or not even necessarily close to 100%. So I'll go with the Bills winning this one. I'll go 27-20.
Oh, okay. Kyle.
Well, I never like doing this.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like doing anything.
No, not much.
Well,
Yeah,
I guess you know what? Never mind, Greg. What do you? I didn't know Kyle was going to pontificate.
I was thinking of a key to the game. I forgot we have to do a key to the
We're
game.
not
do it
doing
next
keys to the
week.
game. Wrap this shit up. Please.
Where do they play? LA? You take them to the nearest forest fire and you throw them in it. And then the Bills, I don't know, man. I'm so terrified. I think the Bills lose 49-10.
All right.
That's
Starting
funny.
the season off hot.
Yeah.
I actually think they're going to win like 42-3, and it's going to get worse because then the hype gets worse. So I think they're going to blow them out. I do.
I love it.
By 5 touchdowns. Yeah.
Well, that's our season preview episode. Ryan, thank you for joining us. Do you have any quick plugs? We know you do a podcast.
Syracuse.com.
Yep.
How do we
Syracuse.com, NYUp.com, Shout, the Buffalo Football Podcast. Check them all out.
Yeah, with Matt Perino, who's been on the pod before as well.
We like you more because I'm assuming
Hey.
Matt will not listen this far in.
Yeah, well,
Thank
well
you. I'll take it.
also when Matt's on, we say the same thing. And that's it for us. Sign up for the Patreon, and we'll see you next week.
Sweeto. Thank you.
Gather round, ye mafia, and hear me tell my tale. How through ages on Erie shore those Bills were doomed to fail. A kick-off course forward is back, and says Berman, says he, you'll circle wagons Buffalo at least till 23. The past looms large like tattered signs for Barnes and Salino, but Allen and McDermott will bring cheer to Buffalo. They say his arm could cure cancer, but Bills fans need it more. This is our year, it has to be. Dear God, let it be our year. Take my tip before your trip to join the rock pile. Don't be a fan of Tom Brady, and Zubaz is still in style. You don't have to suck dick for a Kiko jersey, you can get one at the store. And dildos on the field, you know they're bound to occur. 13 seconds, the only thing that kept us from that bowl. This is the part where I shoehorn in a reference to no goal. Don't forget the Sabres still suck, but don't let it ruin your day. Hearken to those shining Bills, there'll be no hockey in May. Go Bills!